Right, it's 7 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the East Herts Executive Meeting on the 9th of July. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies? No? Okay, no apologies. That's great. Second item is leaders' announcements. This is the first meeting, obviously, since the election, so I think this is probably a good chance to say thank you again to the officers for their work over the election period and at the count. Yeah, it left me shattered, so they must be quite tired. But yeah, so thank you very much. That's appreciated. The only other thing is reminding everyone, obviously, that we're online, so please speak into the microphones with the red button on. That's it. Okay, item 3 is the minutes of the meeting on the 4th of June 2024, which is on pages 6 to 11 of the agenda pack. So, members, we've got before us those minutes. Are you content for me to sign these minutes?
Yes, Leader, I so propose.
Okay. Any seconder? Thanks, Vicky. Any comments? Any nothing? No. Okay, just checking. Okay, so we'll have a vote, please. Everyone in favour? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? Okay, lovely. Thank you. It's item 3. Item 4, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Eric.
Thank you, Chairman. I ought to make the same declaration I made at overview and scrutiny that I'm chairman of the Herts Waste Partnership, so that's in relation to the waste recycling and street cleansing contract. I'm also cabinet member for the Waste Disposal Authority and Recycling Centres. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Right, so this is the award, item 5 is the award of the waste recycling and street cleansing contract, which is pages 12 to 142, and it'll be obviously presented by Councillor Tim Hoskin, who's Executive Member for Environmental Sustainability. Just a reminder that appendices 1 and 8 are restricted. Tim, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. So this report seeks executive approval, and it's North Herts are the lead council, the lead authority in our partnership. We're in a joint partnership for waste handling. So we, at the executive this evening, are seeking approval for the award of that waste recycling and street cleansing contract, but North Herts will actually be the ones that sign the contract and award it. Just by way of background, the waste and recycling and street cleansing service represents the largest spend on services contracts each financial year for East Herts. It's a high-profile service which impacts on residents every week. And as well as having a huge impact on the council's finance, it also has a significant impact and influence for the council's ability to achieve its carbon reduction and sustainability aims based on reducing waste and recycling more, reducing the carbon impacts of residual waste to landfill, or indeed energy from waste. So the executive agreed the service design on the 21st of December last year, and they have since been taken forward with the intention of supporting the long-term financial sustainability of the service and the council. The officers have now completed a competitive dialogue process and are seeking a decision from the executive on the award of the contract to the preferred bidder. In addition, this paper seeks agreement to some further recommendations which affect the service mobilisation and are required for the successful delivery of the services in 2025. The executive should note the following. In October 2023, the government issued a consultation on the proposed statutory guidance to support their simpler recycling proposals. These were developed within the Resources and Waste Strategy of 2018. Some elements of the draft guidance are not aligned with the service changes due to be implemented within this contract should we approve it in 2025. In particular, in relation to the frequency of residual waste collections. Given that councils have been waiting since 2018 for clarity on waste and recycling changes resulting from the Resources and Waste Strategy, we believe it would be prudent to not delay the decision that decision making in the hope of publication within this year or within the foreseeable forward time frame. Officers therefore recommend a decision is made now based on the position of the government response received to date. The councils have sought independent legal advice from Sharp Pritchard regarding our need to regard the as yet unpublished guidance, and this is contained in Appendix 8. This is legally privileged advice and is provided in Part 2. So if we want to explore that, then we'll have to exclude members of the public as the procedure dictates. So there are 4 recommendations for the paper as contained there. That the Executive agrees to North Harts District Council awarding the waste recycling and street cleansing contract to the preferred bidder on behalf of East Harts Council. That the Executive agrees to approve the formation of a joint mobilisation project board to include the Executive members responsible for digital transformation, as well as myself, the Executive member covering waste recycling and street cleansing services. And that will be a joint mobilisation project with East and North Harts. That the Executive has regard for the draft statutory guidance in Appendix 6 and taking into account the matters set out in Part 2 and any Part 2 clarifications, reconfirms the decision on the 3 weekly collection of residual waste, which we made in the Executive in the 21st of December. And finally, the Executive agrees to the commencement of a procurement exercise for the provision of a material recovery facility and haulage to support that facility. So I recommend those decisions to the Executive this evening.
Thanks very much, Tim. Is there a seconder? No? Thank you very much. Okay, so has anyone got any comments, questions, thoughts? Okay, I see Eric. I'll come to Carl first, if that's all right. Carl.
Thank you. Yeah, my question really about the Letchworth Depot. Obviously, in the paper, it says if the Letchworth Depot assignment is not complete by 9th of July, then we still go ahead. But I'm just wondering what the latest information on that is.
Yeah, a bit of a white knuckle ride on this one, in that the current update is that it's not available as of the 9th of July. But the recommendation is still the same, that we agree this evening the ability to award the contract, and then North Harts will award that contract on the immediate arrival of that of that documentation. I'm advised that the wording is agreed, that there is no impediment, but it just hasn't been signed. Does that help in terms of, yeah? So the risk is still there, but it's managed within the framework of the actual award of the contract. So we're agreeing in principle the award, but the actual award will be coincident with that document being signed.
Okay, thank you. Alex.
Thank you. I will first of all comment and then a question. Am I allowed to? But I thought it was really good to see on page 19 the data about Wales, and with 3 weekly collections placing them number 2 high up in the league of councils and bodies that are able to recycle and meet high targets of recycling. And that's really promising. And I then, my question is on page 17, 3.2, about the soft plastic collection, and it talks about a survival bag. And I just wondered if you could go into a bit more detail about that aspect of it, please.
I think that's probably reasonably operational, and I'll ask Chloe to handle that one if I could, please.
Yes, so at the moment our collection methodology proposes residents to be able to put soft plastics, so things like bread bags and salad bags and things like that, in loose in the mixed recycling bin. But at this stage we are still consulting with various materials recovery facilities as part of a pre-engagement exercise to understand whether they have sufficient sorting technology able to sort that material, because there has been traditionally some issues separating it from paper. But I'm pleased to say that I have visited a facility recently and watched some very clever AI sorting soft plastics from paper, and understanding what the market feels about essentially whether or not they can sort it from the loose in the mixed recycling bin. So the survival bag solution is essentially the plan B, which would mean residents would then put their soft plastics in another bag, and that bag would be easily identifiable on the conveyors at the sort facility, and it would essentially be picked from those conveyors and separated out from the dry recycling, and then taken off for processing separately. So it sort of allows for a manual pick of that material rather than a machine pick of that material in a sort of plan B scenario. So that's what that's for.
Perhaps Claire could just give us an insight into, we've got a trial running at the moment, a nationally sponsored trial, which is giving us some forward intel, I suppose.
Yes, so we've been fortunate enough to be part of what's called the sort of Flex Collect trial, which has been fully funded by the Flexible Plastics Fund. And the reason that fund essentially exists is because the government have indicated that they expect soft plastics to be collected by all councils by 2027. So this trial has informed us the types of soft plastics that we are seeing on the curbside, and of course informed those end producers. You know, how is it coming through to them? What does it look like? How can it be sorted and then processed into new materials? So at the moment, the Flex Collect trial is running in an area of Nebworth, in the North Herts side of the contract, and we're soon to be expanding that into the East Herts side. But we have had some issues with our survival bag deliveries, which are currently stuck in the middle of the sea somewhere. We are hoping that sometime mid to late August we'll be expanding that trial into East Herts, and then we'll be getting some more data, and we can of course report back on that as we go through the year.
Very much. Eric?
Thank you, Chairman. I thought you'd forgotten me.
No, of course not.
Fine. Yeah, I was told that the part of Sawbridgeworth I live in will be part of the soft plastics trial. If that's the case, then I look forward to not putting my soft plastic in the residual waste. Just at overview and scrutiny, I expressed my general support for this. And I just wanted to say that on behalf of the Waste Partnership, I have responded to consultations to say that 3 weekly residual waste is the way to go. And I think the conclusion among us was that there's enough flex in the guidelines to actually say, well, if there is good reason, and the reason is we can recycle more, then that's good enough to do it. And there's a new government now, so things may alter, but we don't. That's an unknown at the moment. There are challenges around the additional containers. But I think the really important thing for me as to why we need to move ahead with this now is to get the food waste collected. Now, East Herts isn't the worst recycler across the 10 districts and boroughs. It's not the best by any means. There are some that have recycling rates in the 60s and among the best in the country. I can actually see East Herts getting up to the 60s if we do this right. And as I said, there are challenges because there will be quite a few people dismayed around the number of containers they need to manage. And we discussed at scrutiny the app that's needed, because there will be no 2 weeks the same over a 6-week period because of the way the different things interact. But if that can all be put right, then I can see recycling going up. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I think those are really, really important messages. And a large part of this post-decision work will be about communications, engagement amongst ward councillors across the district council, and ensuring that we can have clear messages to our residents which help. And it's change. There is big change here, but that we can manage that change. And as Eric was suggesting, take the advantage of a new set of contractual terms, take food waste out of the residual waste, which can comprise as much as 20% of the residual waste, and translate that into a recyclable volume. Will be a huge step forward, and it would be lovely to be up with North Herts and ahead of the 60%ers.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? Okay. I think it's just worth putting on record and remembering that this is a project that has been going for, well, since I was 2019, probably before that. And so it's been started under the previous administration, and it's obviously continuing now. Officers have been working for many years on this. So it'll be really, really satisfying for everyone to see the change happening for the better. So I think it's something to be celebrated. Okay, no other questions. Should we take a vote? We've had proposer and seconder. Everyone in favour? Can we have hands, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? No? Okay, that's passed. Lovely. Thank you very much. So we're moving on to item 6, which is a request for area designation for neighbourhood planning for the Hertford Castle Plus and Hertford Town for Hertford Castle Plus with the Hertford Town Council neighbourhood planning, which is covered on pages 143 to 159 of the agenda pack. And it's over to you, Vicky.
Thank you, Leader. Hertford Town Council has submitted an application to East Herts Council for the designation of the town's Castle Ward, Kingsmead West Ward and Bengio South Ward as a neighbourhood area. Prior to the 2023 local boundary changes, this area was all Castle Ward, and it's the last area in Hertford that doesn't have a neighbourhood plan. Hertford Town Council is proposing that this area be known as Hertford Castle Plus. If confirmed, the process of creating a neighbourhood plan for Hertford Castle Plus will begin. In accordance with the legislation, the Council undertook a public consultation in April and May 2024. 6 responses were received, 5 of which were supportive of the designation and the opportunity to create a neighbourhood plan. 1 response was concerned that the area was too large and suggested that some of the area be incorporated into the Bengio and the Kingsmead neighbourhood plan areas instead. However, extensions to the existing Kingsmead and Bengio neighbourhood areas have not been requested by Hertford Town Council and would require the existing recently adopted neighbourhood plans in those neighbourhood areas, one was adopted in 2021 and the other in 2023, to be replaced. It is also important to note that the Ware neighbourhood plan and the 2 Bishop Stortford neighbourhood plan plans both cover a larger neighbourhood area than the Castle Plus designation. To ensure the whole administrative area of Hertford is actually now covered by neighbourhood plans, the proposed neighbourhood plan area is considered a logical and sensible designation to ensure all of Hertford's community is given the opportunity to engage in the neighbourhood plan process. And therefore I do propose the motion that we accept this as a neighbourhood plan area.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder, please? Okay, Carl, thank you very much. Right, questions, comments, thoughts? Anyone? Yeah, Bob.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to check that I heard correctly, that there were only 6 responses, which seems to be staggeringly few and doesn't seem to suggest very much interest. And I just wonder how much this exercise will cost in the face of what seems to be a very, very, very low level of interest.
Yes, you did hear right that there was only 6 responses. I will pass over to the Principal Planning Officer to answer the question on costs.
Hello, thank you. I think it's worth sort of noting that this is a very sort of procedural consultation, and actually 6 is higher than we've had in a lot of other areas. You only actually have to consult when the whole administrative area isn't covered. So many of the sort of parishes, you don't actually have to consult, but 6 is actually higher than we received for the Bengio, Seal and Kingsmead neighbourhood areas. So I think it probably reflects the fact it's quite a procedural thing of just designating the area. The opportunity for sort of consultation and engagement is going to come now as the plan starts to to be developed. And I think now that the focus will be on Hertford Town Council to work with the local community and really sort of encourage the interest really, which in the same way that's happened for the others neighbour plans in Hertford, where they've had quite a low level of interest in this initial boundary designation, that hasn't been reflected as we've moved forward. Once there's something sort of focusing on the topics and the sort of key planning issues in the area. So yeah, it's not something to be particularly worried about when we compare it with other similar consultations of this type.
Okay. Yeah, Bob, do you want to come back?
Just to come back on that was slightly damning with faint praise, wasn't it, really? You didn't do with my question. In round figures, what will this entire exercise cost?
We get government grants, so it doesn't actually cost us anything. So obviously the Hertford Town Council do the first stages of it, so the cost falls on them. East Herts then get involved we obviously have to guide and support them, so that will be officer costs, namely my time and any other sort of supporting officers. But then at examination stages, we get grants from the government to cover both the examination costs and the referendum costs, so that because they are the most expensive parts of the process. So I think at the top it changes, but I think you get 10,000 for the examination and referendum. So we do get, but that does change. Every year they look at it. So in terms of the money that we get back, it's not just all falling on the council's cost essentially, because the government want to promote it.
Well, I take the points you're making, but you haven't actually come up with a figure, and wherever the money comes from, it's taxpayers' money. So if you can't do it now, can you follow up with a note through you, Chair, through to all members, as to what, in round figures, the total cost of this exercise will be, please?
Yeah, of course I can.
Very much.
Alex?
So I was involved with Benji Neighbourhood Plan, and that was happening before COVID. I can remember the first public meeting in the River Rooms, how crowded that room was, and how many people got involved in developing the plan. And the Neighbourhood Plan group is still active. We're meeting on Monday. We meet several times a year. So it's really been good for galvanising the local residents to getting involved and being passionate about their local area. And I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Comments, Sarah?
Thanks. Yeah, I was just going to add that we have been getting kind of informal interest from residents at this stage when Rachel and I have been sort of attending kind of meetings of residents in various different groups. So I think the interest is there. I think as was said, it's this part of the consultation is very procedural and perhaps maybe doesn't spark the interest that people have when it actually gets into the kind of nitty gritty of what's going to be involved. So I think, yeah, there's definitely some interest, and I'm sure that will grow as things kind of get started and start rolling.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Any other comments, questions? No? Okay. Okay. So there are two recommendations for the executive. Can we have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you. Anyone against or any abstentions? No, that's carried. Thank you very much. Right. Moving on to item 7, which is a listening council report, feedback on consultation, which is on pages 160 to 181 of the agenda pack. And I'm going to hand over to Councillor Chris Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. Okay, so I want to preface this by discussing what this document and policy is actually for and the principles behind being a listening council. Some of this will be repeating myself from previous meetings. We find ourselves in a situation where, like many politicians and elected bodies, there's a disconnect and distrust between councillors, politicians and residents. A declining turnout, seen this week nationally too, is combined with the way people consume and interact with news and politics having diversified immensely, and the huge cuts we've had to our funding to produce the perfect storm of misunderstandings from residents. There's been an inevitable tailing off in the quality and amount of services all councils provide. And as one of our local Lib Dem candidates for the general election said recently, we are paying more and getting less. So the perhaps unnecessarily complex way we have to do our business due to national legislation and other things, and the constraints we operate under are now important to communicate to our residents. Previously, when services and councils were better funded, the need was less, as people weren't as concerned or disaffected by what they got off their council tax. The public need to be involved with knowing what challenges we have and helping us negotiate them. This is not an implicit or explicit criticism of what has gone before, just an effort to exchange things in a changing world and situation. This report is about a set of principles by which we will now interact with the public and the result of the public consultation on this report. It goes into detail with respect to what we did beyond our usual online engagement to get feedback and responses on this occasion. I'm not surprised at the relatively low response, as this is an abstract topic, a little like the discussion we've just had, and does not directly affect people's lives. Also, this whole process must be one where we learn and test how we interact and how successful our efforts are to reach out. So this is useful in itself to know how successful otherwise this consultation was in getting responses. There was some valuable feedback, however, and I thank those that made the effort to respond. The comments were largely positive and constructive, and I also thank the officers involved for making judicious changes to the document. I'll address directly a couple of points made by both members of overview and scrutiny from when the paper went through this committee and points made by the public. It is vital that we give feedback as to what we do after engaging and consulting, and we now commit to doing this in a revised paper. Additionally, a touch of realism has been added. Comments from some members and residents have been made accusing us of not listening if we haven't concurred with what the public seem to want. The council, of course, retains the decision-making power, and often we have constraints that mean we can't do what the public want. This is also made clear in the paper. Finally, if done properly and successfully, good communication will always result in money saved, not spent. So understandable concerns surrounding the cost of this new approach are negated by this fact. Examples of successful listening projects are in the paper. I also want to make members aware of plans to visit the 5 towns and 1 village with respect to future proposals for a parking strategy. These will be public meetings with officers present, and materials will be made available before and after the meetings online and hopefully via other methods too. So in conclusion, I would propose that we accept the amended report.
Thanks very much, Chris. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Thanks, Alex. Questions or comments, thoughts? Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, I think Bob next to me would have also commented, but he's had to leave the room for a call, but I'll cover some of the points. I want to start by saying something positive around engagement of officers with members, because I found that to be pretty excellent of recent times in terms of the member inquiry system, or whether directly from officers, timely responses and detail and a lot of helpful advice and information. I do understand the intentions of this report, but I've always thought from the very beginning it's really difficult for any council to brand themselves as a listening council, simply because, as Councillor Wilson said, decisions have to be made and we cannot please all of the people. And even if it says that in the report, I think people use the phrase a listening council negatively when decisions are made against what they believe should be made. Now, we all know that people generally respond to things that are very local to them. It's the way things are, and typically it's going to be around things like planning, very much so, a little bit less on parking, maybe air quality sometimes. But the issue is that if we brand ourselves a listening council, it will always be thrown back at us. Now, in terms of this report, because again of the low response rate, and I understand it's a bit abstract, however, you know, I counted 23 responses. So in terms of the stats within the report, it's really meaningless. So my view of this is that had I seen this report, I probably would have wanted to hold it and think again as to how we engage better, because as an example of engagement on public engagement, this is not good. And I'm going to have to say something which not all of you will appreciate, and I understand the intentions around a listening council. I represent 10 communities across a swathe of East Herts. And they're saying to me, particularly in planning matters, that engagement is actually worse than it was under the previous administration. You don't need to take my word for that. You can ask some of your own members. So I just thought I'd say that because it's really important. And if you really want to engage well and give the view that we're listening, I think a different approach needs to be had. But so the branding of listening council is always going to be a challenge. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks very much. Yep. Yeah. Sorry, Chris, did you want to come back? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I would say that I understand the point entirely about how it can be brandished. However, if we really truly do this as hope we can do, then we'll be listening and people understand that their concerns have been heard, but also we have to convey why we can't agree with what they want. And certainly my experience, sure more limited than yours, Eric, but my experience has been that when you do that with people and you say, I really have heard what you said, I understand your point, here's the reason why we can't do it, or here's the reason why we're disagreeing with that, that's usually very much appreciated, and that is listening. It isn't just about agreeing. Listening isn't agreeing. Listening is just that. It's understanding their point of view and conveying that you do so and showing that you've listened. I do think it's quite possible to do. And if we keep getting criticism from people that are not happy, that's fine. We just need to do what we're supposed to do.
I'm sure everybody can appreciate that with planning matters, there are certain decisions that we have to take where people are not going to be very happy with them. However, what I would say is that we've introduced the community forums. We have 2 that are already in operation. We have others that will be coming online. And those are a good way for residents to engage with the council and also with developers and also with the rest of their fellow residents. The amount of resources we're putting into the community forums and the amount of feedback we are getting from them is extremely valuable. And I think that Eric might have people that are unhappy with planning decisions, but I don't think that they're getting communicated with less. I think they're getting communicated with far more than they were under the previous administration.
Go on, Eric. Go on.
Look, you need to take my word for it. I've heard it said a couple of times at least that they feel engagement is not good and not as good as it was before. So it may well be that we're engaging in a certain way, but actually residents and parishes may not be getting responses in the way that they want or in a timely fashion. So I would just say pay attention to that because that needs improvement.
I think, go on, Vicky, you go answer.
Then maybe those residents and parishes need to write to me and explain to me what it is that they do want, because apart from a couple of lone individuals, I'm not getting that sort of feedback.
Thanks, Vicky. I think one of the points I'll come to you, Tim. I think one of the points as well is that the planning process there has changed, has moved on, hasn't it? I think perhaps it's moved on from the broader consultations about of selecting the areas, of taking those early consultations, pre-planning. We've now moving through the planning process. So it's almost inevitable that there will be a change in the way that the council interacts with residents because of the planning process. But anyway, so I kind of feel like some of the change is inevitable. That will happen. But we've always got to listen more. And we have, I think, as Vicky said, created those new forums which weren't in place before. Over to you, Marlene.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I have been listening to Councillor Buckmaster. Thank you for your comments, and I respect your views. And I think it is important, as listening, we should listen to everybody's views. So thank you for your contribution. I think the thrust of this paper is that we would like to indicate to residents that we want everyone to be involved, and we know that everyone has an individual point of view, and we respect those points of view, and we would like to hear them, and then we would like to assess what will be the best decisions that we could take. There may be other ways to engage as well as by listening. And there are very many different ways that we can use different forms of media to consult and engage with people. Just because something is difficult does not mean to say that we should not try to do it. So maybe this is a first step. I think it is a very positive one, and it does send a clear signal to the residents of East Harts that we want to hear their views and we do want to listen. We may not be able to deliver everything that everybody wants, but we do want to listen and we do want to consider everybody's views. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Alex?
I'm just looking at the example, actually 1.5 of communities where they had trusted voices within local communities who could make connections. And it actually reminds me back to the conversation we just had about the Castle Plus neighbourhood plan, is that what I've seen happen with those neighbourhood plans is the development of that voice and people who can, that I think that's a really good example of engagement and communication, which I assume has been referenced in here. It's a similar sort of thing. So these things are connected. Thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably one of the most difficult things, you know, collectively as a council that we'll tackle, because it's not mechanical. There's no, you know, pull lever A and so happens, because it doesn't work like that. And I think it will require us as councillors to put ourselves in vulnerable positions, and it will require residents to make themselves feel vulnerable by asking questions in open forum. And I can imagine it'll be a nightmare the first, you know, when we actually engage. But I think there are, you know, I think the first steps are important. I think in this paper, whilst not perfect, I think does represent a way forward where there's an endeavour. We want to be able to demonstrate that we're doing this. But I take Eric's point. It is. I think this is probably the most difficult thing, because, you know, without the checks to make sure that the message has been received, what message has been received, how that has been interpreted, then it is quite a cycle that we're taking on here. And of course, the point that it will be thrown back at us is absolutely valid, because it will be, because we will never get it right. But we hope to improve from this position. And we've got umpteen opportunities as individual councillors and as exec to be able to live the walk on this one, or walk the talk on this one if we can.
No, thank you. Thanks. Any other questions? Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. So there's one recommendation for the executive. Can we have a show of hands for those in support, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's been carried. Thank you very much. Item 8, Ward Freeman Community Pool CIO match funding support for the Community Ownership Fund bid, which is on pages 182 to 193 of the agenda pack. And that's Councillor Carl Britton.
Thank you, Leader. Ward Freeman swimming pool closed in December 2023 for health and safety reasons. Subsequently, the Ward Freeman Community Pool Group has been formed and registered as a charity with the aim of repairing and reopening the pool. The group intends to make a bid to the Community Ownership Fund to pay for the repairs, but to do so, match funding of 20% is required. The group have asked if East Harts District Council will agree to provide the match funding, an amount up to £200,000 towards a total cost of £1 million, and provide a letter of support to put in the application. The money is for repairs to the filtration, heating and associated plant, and repairs to the pool tank. It will also cover refurbishment of the changing area. At this moment in time, the decision we are making is purely to agree to sending the letter of support indicating willingness to match fund. The letter also needs to include additional information, as this is a publicly owned asset. The actual decision to provide the match fund will be a separate decision should the application to the Community Ownership Fund be successful. However, if we agree to send the letter of support, I think that morally obligates us to provide the match funding when that decision comes around. So if there are any concerns about providing the match funding, these need to be addressed now. The source of the match funding will be the existing management charge payment to SLM, which is still contained within the revenue-based budget. The revenue budget will be applied as direct revenue financing for the capital grant. The management charge will be removed in subsequent years and contribute to the savings in the medium-term financial plan. In simple terms, future costs already in the medium-term financial plan would be used to fund this. I believe that supporting the Ward Freeman Community Pool Group with this match funding is the best way to bring this valuable community asset back into use. Without this match funding, the pool would almost certainly have to permanently close, and residents of Buntingford and the surrounding area would lose a vital facility. If it could be reopened, it would provide social value to the community and healthcare benefits too. I'd like to propose this paper.
Thanks very much. Do we have a seconder, please? Oh, Sarah, thank you very much. Questions or comments, thoughts? Eric.
Okay, I'll go again. Yeah, I don't see any risk to this. It's in principle. I just want to acknowledge Sarah Hopewell's efforts in trying to move this along. It is very challenging to get the funding, whether it's from the Community Ownership Fund or the WFCPG. Is that a different one? Or was that the same one? Oh, I see. Okay. Right, understood. Yeah, so it's right to do this, and you know, if it can be possible to reopen, then we should do all we can to do that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Stan.
I'd just like to endorse what my colleague Eric said. Being a local member and seeing my children growing up and grandchildren, it set them going in life, particularly with all sport actually. And, you know, I do congratulate the team in pushing this forward, and I wish them every success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stan. Yeah. Go, Joe.
Thank you, Lady. Yeah, I think I've spoken at length about this subject before, and the importance of health and well-being and exercise and the benefits to individuals, to our health service because of what it can prevent. But I also want to take this opportunity to say, if you look back where we were when we first heard that the pool would close, and the mood in the room then, and Sarah's brought it such a long way since then, and I think she needs to be commended for that.
Yeah. Any other comments? Sarah, I think it's only right that you will say.
Thank you very much for all the nice words, but I would also like to take this opportunity to first of all thank the officers for identifying this pot in the first place, but also just the people that volunteered to take part and be part of the community group. They're a fantastic group and they've really run with this project. So yeah, they've been really brilliant. Thanks.
Chris.
I'd like to say this is an example actually of us talking with the community, getting across difficult messages, us listening to their real concerns, and then it working afterwards, even though we've had to give them difficult messages. This is exactly the sort of thing we need to be doing and what we've just been talking about. And that's what Sarah's done as an example to what we need to keep doing. In often very difficult circumstances, often not of anyone's doing or fault.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think there was, certainly passion in the community, which was evident when, Sarah, you went and had the first meetings. And you've managed to harness a lot of that, which is really positive for everyone. So, yeah. David.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm very pleased to see this come forward. But could I no wish to dampen the proceedings at all, but we are talking about a lot of money here. It's something I feel passionately about. My residents use this facility, or did use this facility, daily. All of my children learnt their skills in that pool, and I well remember that. However, are we spoiling the ship for Hapeth Tar? It's a very old facility. It's run its course. Do we not need a new one? We're putting a lot of money into patching up the old, and perhaps there's too many patches. I think of the old Heath Robinson cartoons where you have these tires with patches that are sewn on. Have we investigated? And it's a big step, I grant you, but have we investigated a new facility?
I think, yeah, Sarah, I think it can, I think, you know, as you know, the cost is going to be the issue there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take on the point that it's an old facility. In terms of the kind of condition surveys, the actual structure of the building itself is in pretty good condition. Surprisingly, it's more like there's quite a few, I guess, cosmetic things that would definitely sort of improve it, just in terms of. So it was, yeah, some cosmetic changes that would certainly improve it. I mean, I guess ultimately all this information and the structural survey and all the business case plan that the groups come up with and all the other information will be made available to the community ownership fund and will ultimately be sort of their decision as to whether they think it is worth the investment. So if they decide it is, I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Go back to David first.
Whichever ways it goes, I wish everybody luck with this. It's got to be done.
Vicky.
I was just going to say that a new facility would probably cost about the same as the Arts Centre in Bishop Stortford, which we've also had to cancel because we don't have the money. And I think that Councillor McAndrews made a massive point about the fact that we shouldn't be giving any money to Ward Freeman if we are not doing the Arts Centre, because what would we tell the people of Bishop Stortford? So I don't think that looking into a new pool at Ward Freeman, although that might be preferable, is doable within the budgets that we have, nor is it fair on other towns.
Thanks, Vicky. Yeah, and unless the new government is going to be very generous in offering some facilities, in which case we would embrace a new facility. Eric.
Just on that, I'd just like to remind everyone we're a district council and we shouldn't be parochial to that extent. Thank you, Chairman.
James.
I just wanted to slightly correct something that was said a moment ago. The Arts Centre is postponed in Bishop Stortford. It has not been cancelled. Just wanted to make that clear.
Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, that's a really important point. Okay. Any other questions? I think we've had a good discussion on this. If not, can we go to a vote? All those in favour? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No. Thank you very much. Okay, that's passed. On to item 9. Are there any items of urgent business? No. Okay. Well, at 19:48, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.